Lawyers are very smart people, and they will ask the same question in a million different ways, trying to trip you as an expert witness. In order to stay relevant and believable as an expert witness, you always have to stick to the truth and what you really believe fundamentally that is happening in a case.
My guest today is Cristian Zarcu, who's had a long career in Wall Street as managing director and head of analytics at several major Wall Street banks. He's now got his own firm where he's doing analytic trading and risk management. He also has a long background in education. He's studied blockchain at MIT, artificial intelligence in Helsinki. He's on the board of advisors at the University of Idaho School of Business and Economics. We're going to talk today about being an expert witness. So, Kristen, it's an interesting kind of career interlude or something you do in addition to what you're doing as an expert witness. It seems to me that being an expert witness, part of the job is thinking of ways to explain things, sometimes complex things, to people who may be bright but not knowledgeable about the subject. But to do it in a strange format, it's not like a classroom where you're in control, except for the odd disruptive student. You're answering questions from someone else to get the point across. And in a school environment, you don't have someone on the other side trying to dispel what you're saying. How do you like doing that? How do you get through that? And do you think that your experience in industry, rather than just in academics, is helpful when you're doing this?
Well, thank you, Dan. It is definitely an interesting problem to solve. You find yourself in a position to educate folks like a jury, but much like you're saying, you're not the guy controlling the discussion. But I enjoyed very much my experience in the financial world, specifically in trading and analytics and systems. It gives me a very broad background when it comes to financial services related cases, and I can give a macro sort of 30,000 view of what's happening in a specific case to a jury or to a judge and hopefully make him understand. And I've been pretty successful at it. I've had some very interesting cases where I have had to explain some very complex notions related to algorithmic trading. And just the notion of algorithmic trading or systematic trading scares people to begin with. So you have to find a way to communicate the basics of the conversation, the basics of the case, if you will, without confusing everybody and sort of using layman terms. And it's always a very interesting challenge, but I find it to be very interesting. It gives me the ability to sort of put myself in a juror's sort of place and find a way to communicate to them what is really happening in the case. And again, I have managed to be pretty successful so far and hope to continue to do so.
How about dealing with the other side when they're trying to undermine what you're saying? Does it require any special care or special skills?
Well, I find that the other side is always trying to undermine you or trip you, if you will. And having worked with counsel now with lawyers for the past, I guess, 6 years, I've learned that they're only doing their jobs, right? So everybody focuses on their side of the case, things that are portraying the case in the light that they want to portray it in. But it is my job as an expert witness to stick to the facts in the case, to always stick to the truth. And one of the important parts of being an expert witness is paying attention to the questions being asked. Lawyers are very smart people, and they will ask the same question in a million different ways, trying to trip you as an expert witness. And if you're not aware of the slight changes in the questions, sometimes they introduce a word, sometimes they take it away, which completely can change the meaning of the question, therefore the meaning of your answer. So I think it's a bit of an art. It's a bit like playing chess with someone. You got to be very careful with your answers and sort of anticipate the next move. But again, all within staying strong in your beliefs in the case. And I think it's easy when you choose cases carefully that you believe in strongly and you're not in misalignment, if you will, with what the thesis of the case is on your own side. So it does require some care and deliberation in giving answers, but expertise in your industry and belief, strong belief in the case that you're taking on, I think helps a lot with that.
If someone came to you and asked you to be an expert witness on a side that you didn't agree with, you would be reluctant to do that, or you wouldn't do that?
I have turned cases away where I felt that I could not agree with the thesis of the counsel that was looking to retain me. So that has happened. Of course, sometimes you discover things that you may have a different opinion on versus the counsel that you're working with. And I've been fortunate enough to work with counsels who have always advised me to be truthful and state what I believe, and that's what I always default to. Does that make it a little more difficult at times? It can. But I think in order to stay relevant and believable as an expert witness, you always have to stick to the truth and what you really believe fundamentally that is happening in a case.
I think it improves your credibility.
It does, Dan. And sometimes that's a hard thing to do because it may not fully align with the perspective that your counsel might be taking. But I think one has to stay true to their beliefs and experience and state the case as they see it.
Well, that's why you're hired as an expert for your expertise. And if you switch that, you've lost your credibility, and you can't do that.
Exactly. So you got to always remember that you're the expert witness and you're supposed to be uninvolved in the case and unemotional, which is what I always try to do. Just try to review the facts and analyze the data that's being given to me and offer an opinion based on strictly the information that I see and no subjective opinion.
Do you help the lawyers come up with the questions to ask you so that the message gets across, or do they do it themselves?
I think, in my experience, what's happening is we have these extended conversations where they ask me a variety of questions to see what my answers are, and then they ultimately decide what those questions will be that they might use in depositions or at trials or what have you. But I offer my perspective as much as I can in terms of what I think of the facts in the case related to my assignment. I explain to them what the data might mean. I explain to them what, if I'm analyzing a trading activity in an algorithm, I give them all the facts as I see them. And from there, the conversation just kind of evolves as I believe as the lawyers understand more and more of what I'm talking about. They have a better way of judging what the questions should be for the case.
Is there anything that you find that you don't like about doing this expert witness?
So I have enjoyed my experience very much. I really like the cases that I've been involved with. They've covered the gamut in terms of financial services, from regulatory compliance to systems to deep down in analyzing trading data. I enjoy all that. The one thing that I enjoy less is this perceived notion that even though, I always strive for objectivity, and I suspect most expert witnesses do, there's always this perception that you might just be another hired gun. And certainly the other side is always trying to make that case that you're just a hired gun, you're just here for the money, and you're just stating what needs to be stated. But that's the one thing that bothers me about it, because the way I approach it is truly, I'm interested in presenting the facts as I see them, analyzing the data, and just coming up with the results. So keep the subjectivity away as much as possible. That's the one downside.
That's the one, yeah. Do the lawyers ever get under your skin?
Yes, sometimes they do. And it varies. I mean, I've worked with some very professional lawyers on the other side who have kept it very professional. But I've had a couple of cases in New York City, surprise, surprise, where the lawyers were much more aggressive, where I had to stand up and kind of be the same a little bit. And it seems like that's okay sometimes. Most of the times, my counsel advises me to be unemotional and keep my cool. I've had one instance where, again, the lawyer was very aggressive and I had to respond in kind to bring the conversation down to a civil level, if you will. But it does happen sometimes. I try to keep it at a minimum, though.
It sounds like you've found a niche that you're very good at and you enjoy doing, and you've got the expertise that's in demand. So thank you very much for the time, and I've enjoyed the conversation. And we may chat again. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it as well. Thank you. Yeah.